Infomercials are designed to grab your attention, and this particular individual in the early 2000s, WWE did just that. My name is Emir. This is Victoire. Before we begin today's episode, I ask that you kindly subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button, ring the notifications, do all that good stuff, and make sure that you don't miss a single episode. Back to my guest today. He was a part of ECW, and he was quite the creative there because he was responsible for creating the Blue World Order. Later on, he was signed to WWE, and in the early 2000s, he had some of the most memorable segments, including one with now actor, Hollywood movie star Dave Bautista. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you all to get fit with Mike Busey, aka Supernova, aka Nova, aka WWE's Simon Dean. Victoire. Victoire gives a special thanks to the EWF and Mr. Jesse Hernandez, as well as SoCal Wrestling TV. Find the app for free on Roku. Staying healthy can be a challenge, but not with Clark's Nutrition and Natural Foods Market. Find the highest quality organic produce and supplements available in the USA. A tattoo is for life, so ensure that your tattoo artist is the very best in the country. Trusted Tattoo Company and Mobile Body Art Bus. Do you live in the San Diego area? Are you looking to become a professional wrestler? Look no further than Primal Pro Wrestling, 619-971-1445. Football, baseball, golf, whatever your sport of choice, whenever you visit Palm Springs in the Coachella Valley, visit Legends and Icons, your number one choice for sports bars.
Palm Springs, California, Indian Wells, California, Rancho Mirage, California. They're all considered a destination hotspot, a second home haven. With an exquisite record of negotiating the finest deals for clients, Lowell Folsom III and Associates always deliver. Contact Lowell today at 760-391-2504.
Now, on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of Victoire. I am your host, Emir. Before we begin today, I ask that you kindly subscribe to the channel. It increases our viewership and we can spread these inspirational pieces so much further. My guest today is a man who was involved in professional wrestling during the height, arguably the height of its popularity. He was a part of ECW and the Blue World Order, and also a part of WWE during its ruthless aggression blaze. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mike Busey. You also know him as Nova, Supernova, and Simon Dean. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, brother. I think Hollywood Nova in there too. Give him his shout out.
Yes, actually, Hollywood.
Thank you, Amir. You come very highly touted. I saw a couple of the clips of stuff you've done in the past. When you reached out to me, and I knew you were connected to the one and only Jesse Hernandez. That's all you needed to say. That's how much weight Jesse's name holds in the industry. Yep. Even to those who haven't seen him in 20 years, I couldn't say yes quick enough. So we were able to work this out on the schedule, and yep. I got some time for you tonight, and here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an absolute pleasure having you here. And yes, special thanks to Mr. Jesse Hernandez. He's been involved in so many careers over the years. And of course, you know, he's been integral to mine and yours, Mike. But Mike, for the viewers that may not be familiar, and for those that even are familiar, I wanted to dig a little bit into your story as well, because you're involved in a couple of eras of pro wrestling and an extreme one. But tell us, what were things like for you as a youngster? What inspired you to want to get into pro wrestling, and how did the opportunity present itself originally?
Again, thanks for having me tonight, Amir. I always like to spread a little bit of cheer out there. I don't do a lot of these anymore, so this one is interesting because you do have a message of positivity, and we will focus a little bit on what's possible post-wrestling, which I'm a huge proponent of. Yeah. I was a fan growing up. Me and my brother Donnie B, we watched it our whole life in New Jersey. That's where we're from. I remember sitting on the living room floor watching Hogan slam Andre and
Yeah.
coming up with the product and all of that. 605 TBS on Saturday nights. Like we lived for it.
Yeah.
A friend of ours named Rich, he was always going to go to the Hart School when he graduated high school. I graduated, I'll give you an idea of my age. I graduated high school in 1990.
Okay.
I mean, it's me 52 this year.
Wow.
But
You don't look it.
thanks, brother. But Rich, the Hart School, right when he was getting ready to go, there was a gentleman that was opening up a wrestling school in Bricktown, New Jersey, which is right near us. It's like 15 minutes down the road. His name was Iron Mike Sharp, Canada's greatest athlete. I love Mike.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be here today. And some of the best friends I still have to this day were from Mike's school, but I digress. So Mike opens up his school. Rich starts going to it. Me and my brother would go and watch him train. And after a while, Mike would pull me aside. He'd say, you guys are here all the time watching. Why don't you try it? Mm-hmm. And I had a full-time job. I was going to college. I wanted to, either math or research or something. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Yeah. But I was like, all right, let me go and mess around with this. So I bounced around the ring a couple times. And Mike used to have shows at the school once a month. All right, was it every other Saturday? Every other Saturday or once a month, I think. And so I started wrestling a little bit at his school. And I was like, well, this is fun.
Yeah.
Some guys have bowling leagues. Some play darts, pool halls, whatever. Like this would be my little fun to play with. And that's it.
Yeah.
So I started doing it, and that was in '92. I was one of the first students there, along with Crowbar, Devin Storm.
Oh yeah,
yep. Mike Moraldo, Ace Darling, Big Jerry the Wall. There was a bunch of us, and then like guys like Kent Porter, Cyclotron, and Rocco Dorsey, and Rick Ratchet, and all of us were there, and we all started doing the shows on the weekends. We go work for Dino Santa in Pennsylvania, legendary promoter, the great late great Dennis Carluzzo, and we were wrestling all over the East Coast. And I would go up. This is probably 94, 95 when the WWF was in town. Yeah. They would bring extras up there to do the matches through Mike. That's where I first met Tony DeVito, Mike Bell, PJ, the Hardys. I met them breaking in, but that's how you started back then. You went up and you were an extra. So just kind of started blossoming from there, man. Every month, every 6 months, just kept getting out there and trying. And I had a lot more matches in my life where I made nothing or made $25 than nights that I made 10 grand.
Yeah.
But some of those nights where I made nothing or made $25, I had more fun in those nights than a night where I made 10 grand, believe it or not. So,
were some of those occasions when you were working as an extra in WWE, were you paid well during those times, or?
Yeah, the standard thing on that was, I'm sure it's changed just as going back. I'm really going to date myself, so a lot of people will not get this at all. But you went up there, myself, Johnny Hanson, Bobby Who, Mike Moraldo. Mike would take his rotation of guys up there. Billy the Kid, Bobby Piper, all of us would go up. And you got $150 a night.
Okay.
And they did Wrestling Challenge, they did Wrestling Superstars, and I think they did Raw too. But you got $150 a night, and you had to go see Arnold Skolin. That's how far I go back.
Wow.
Freaking Arnold Skolin. I can't believe I got to meet Arnold Skolin, but you go see Arnie to get your $150. Wow. So at the end of the night, when you got done, you had to go see Arnie and get your $150. But Gurria was up there, and I love Tony, and that's when I met Tim White and so many guys that actually remembered me 15 years later when I was going as Simon.
Yeah.
But that's how you started as an extra. I wrestled Atom Bomb up there and Diesel and Mr. Hughes, Head Shrinkers. I mean, I wrestled a ton of guys.
Gosh.
But, that's how Ludwig Borga.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All of them. So
man, what a great time period there. So was it vastly different from when you came back in the 2000s, the WWF model? Yep.
Backstage. Well, I mean, I never felt, there were so many times like I always felt like I was trying to prove myself, but when you went up there as an extra, you're an extra.
Yeah.
You're just there to, help out and do what you can. It's intimidating. But when I went back as Simon Dean, I was under contract and I already knew, like on a first name basis, or had wrestled probably 3/4 of the guys who were up there already.
Yeah.
Man. Now the biggest advantage that so many of these guys and girls have is that all three brands kind of connected with Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, all the same thing. If you're in NXT, I mean, everybody on the main roster now has pretty much been in NXT or they've been around each other and this and that. They all get to know each other. There's very few that are coming out from a territory or what I would call like a free agent guy who's going to come in there and hasn't already wrestled a lot of these guys already or hasn't known them for years. So that's a huge plus to today's group.
Yeah. So during that time, were you working on any sort of character development, any gimmicks, to take to WWE?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. When I was first in ECW, was Nova. I was on the Indies. I was a superhero Nova. I had the cape and the makeup and all that. I
Mhm.
just figured there was no real superhero at the time. Up
Yeah.
until that point, I want to say maybe Owen had done the Blue Blazer a little bit,
Okay. Yeah.
but there had been no real comic book superhero. So I think I was kind of the first. Blue
Yeah.
Blazer, with all due respect, he was. I don't remember what that time frame was, but it was around the same time.
Hmm.
But I was doing the superhero thing, and then when went to East, I was on an independent show that Raven was on,
Okay.
and I had met Raven very briefly through Stevie. Stevie
Hmm.
was a Mike Sharp guy too. So
Okay.
Stevie was just starting to get his run in ECW a little bit. I'm on this show, and Raven pulled me aside and told me that he loved my superhero act. And
Hmm.
he's like, it reminded him like an Adam West Batman goofy kind of thing.
Yeah.
He said, I'm starting this group in ECW. I have your buddy Stevie. I
Hmm.
got this big fat guy with blue hair who can do a moonsault. I'm gonna have him.
Yeah.
You'd be the perfect guy to be in this flock. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
shit, shoot, I'm in for that.
Yeah.
And I went up and met him, and I dropped off a tape to him, like some of my stuff. And about a week later, I get home from work, and my mom said, "Hey, there's a guy named Raven on the answer machine for you." And she didn't know any of that. I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
So he told me to come to the arena, and I went to the arena. I went backstage. Probably to this day, man, that was one of the scariest nights of my life, going to the arena that first time and seeing Big Ronnie from Atlas. When I
Yeah.
went and told him Raven wanted to see me, he pulled me in the back, and the first guy I met was Dreamer back there,
Oh
and
yeah.
then I met Beulah and a couple others. And Dreamer came over and said, "Look, if you want to start showing up to the shows, there's no guarantee. We'll
Hmm.
have you be part of Scotty's thing. Here's your first payoff." And he gave me a hot dog, and I couldn't have been happier for it.
Yeah.
And then I just started going to the ECW shows, and I was part of Raven's flock,
Uh-huh.
and it went from there.
So you met Tommy first ahead of Paul Heyman then?
Yes, that night. Well, Paul, obviously, that's the arena.
Mhm.
It's ground zero. Everything is going crazy. I actually pretty sure I had met Tommy before that at a show for Dino Santa in Pennsylvania. I think I did,
Mhm.
but he was the first one as soon as I came to the curtain, because when you walked in that general area back in the old ECW arena, it
Mhm.
was just a giant open area.
Yeah.
The FBI be in one corner getting dressed. This one's in this corner. Nova and Meanie over here. Like, you just spread out all over the place. So you take your own little areas.
Hmm.
But I'm pretty sure Tommy was the first one I talked to. And then I met Taz. And then
Okay.
Taz brought me. I went up to the House of Hardcore school a couple times just to fine tune a little bit and get better.
Hmm.
But every day in ECW was on the job learning.
Okay.
Before the show, in the ring, during the matches, watching the matches, all of it. Like, that was definitely a crash course, because I was not good by any means out of Mike Sharp's school. I could do some cool stuff.
Hmm.
I wasn't really an athlete at that point. I was training what I thought was seriously. I didn't really know what serious training was,
Hmm.
uh, but I wanted to get better. So I
Yeah.
just tried to do what I could and make myself available to get better.
Now, at that time, did you have a career job, or I mean, you had part-time work or something like that, or was the pay
Uh,
good enough?
yeah, believe it or not, I was going. So I was going to college for mathematics, 3 days a week,
Hmm.
and then I was working at Wendy's too. That was a big thing. And
Yeah.
actually, I bring that up because I remember one of the first discussions I had with Hunter was he was a former Wendy's employee too. So there you
Oh,
go. We had
yeah.
that in common.
That's interesting. I actually, side note, I did actually spend about 3 weeks at Wendy's as
Oh, okay.
well.
I wasn't there long. I was only
Yeah.
there about 7 years.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yeah, I would
well.
work there Monday through Fridays. I would work in the morning at Wendy's. I'd get out of Wendy's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yeah.
go to college from 3 to 6, and
Hmm.
then at 7 o'clock I went to Mike Sharp's school. I was there till 12 o'clock at night,
Gosh.
sometimes doing whatever we could. And Mike taught us the best he could. He taught us what we did. But again, we'd get in that car on the weekends and go do our shows and sit around and plan them out and do the stuff we saw on TV. And we didn't understand like true psychology of building matches and
Hmm.
heats and cutoffs and hope spots, like any of that stuff. I didn't learn any of that until I went to ECW.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
learned even more when I came to Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Hmm.
So Simon Dean was, the the aspirations and the energy of a kid on the indies in New Jersey, and the work ethic created in ECW, and then the knowledge I got from OVW. So without
Hmm.
all of that together, there's no chance I would have made it in
Yeah.
WWE.
No, absolutely not. Now, in terms of you mentioned their psychology and storytelling, do you watch the current pro wrestling on TV now?
Not as much, and that's certainly not because I don't like it. It's just, I mean, I work full time. I'm a single dad. I do about 500 hours a year volunteer work. I'm in several different boards and committees. I do some acting stuff on the side. Like, it is so difficult for me to get any time.
Mhm.
Besides when the Dallas Cowboys are on, that's the only time I shut down the world. Like, don't talk to me. I need to see this.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's rare that I can sit down and watch something live
Hmm.
while it's on TV.
Hmm.
So I mean, I'll watch every now and then. A lot of guys will send me something and say, "Hey, man, check this out or that." Or
Hmm.
like I watched the other night, I saw somebody sent me a clip of Cody and Roman's thing that they did from Georgia Tech. I
Okay.
thought that was cool as hell. That was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
far as matches go, I think that the wrestling business has definitely evolved. I don't use the word evolve, not but whatever. It's changed.
Yeah.
The matches are much more of an athletic contest
Hmm.
where I think the performers are out having this amazing struggle. And sometimes when they get it right with the good versus evil, it's still there. But a
Hmm.
lot of times it's an athletic contest that they're putting on for the fans to appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not as much of a contest between bad guy, this evil bad guy against this white knight who's going to save the day, and the
Yeah.
bad guy has to be dastardly and pull out all of his tricks.
Yeah.
And can our good guy, can he fight for us? Can he come back? It doesn't feel the same,
Right.
but the athleticism and what they do is incredible.
Hmm.
But I think back sometimes I watch some of the old ECW stuff, and I'm talking about like myself, Jerry Lynn, Tajiri, Super Crazy, Guido, Kid Cash, even
Hmm.
the WCW cruiserweights, a lot of those guys,
Yeah.
Shane and Three Count, and all those guys. Go watch some of those matches now,
Hmm.
and you might say to yourself, "Wait a minute, this is from almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like this looks like something I could see on AEW this week."
Yeah.
And we
Absolutely.
were a lot of us were ahead of our time back then. We just
Hmm.
didn't. We were helping get the business to where it is today. We just didn't know it at the time.
Hmm. Yeah.
And usually we got yelled at and said, "Slow down, you don't know what you're doing." And a lot of times they were right,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I
yeah,
definitely agree with you.
it's a different ball game today, man. It's fun to watch though. It's cool, man. I see some stuff every now and then. I'm like, man, I wish I thought of that.
Yeah, definitely some cool stuff, but definitely harken back to you mentioned WCW there. When I remember watching WCW and the cruiserweights, absolutely strong comparison to today's
Yeah,
action that you would see in the ring. But you've got a lot of energy, obviously, Mike. I mean, you've just detailed so
I
many
try,
things
man.
that you do. Have you always been like that, or did it just turn on when you entered wrestling?
I was very quiet and very shy in high school. I just kept to myself. It was comic book, sci-fi, wrestling. Didn't say much. I had my small group. Got into wrestling. Wrestling will provide you, and I try to mentor guys, and I'll tell them this: wrestling can provide you with the best toolbox that you'll need for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
You'll learn how to be confident. You can learn how to cut promos. You can learn how to talk. You can learn how to be memorable. You've got a cool icebreaker. You become unforgettable.
Yeah.
You become structured. You become disciplined.
Hmm.
So many things you learn from pro wrestling that you don't even know you're learning it when you're learning it.
Hmm.
And there's an awful lot of guys that are doing this and girls who might not make the main event of WrestleMania one day, and
Hmm.
they might not make $5 million during their career.
Right.
But in that meantime, their career certainly can't be considered not a good career because they didn't make that ultimate money or the ultimate matches. They're learning these life skills
Hmm.
that they can take into the real world one day.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. There's a lot of guys that get out of wrestling and they've done very well in the real world for themselves with stuff they learned from wrestling.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. I was going to say it's a great educator.
yes,
Even for an artist to watch pro wrestling, you
yes,
can learn so much. Like you said, storytelling, music, showmanship, everything combined. It really is. I think wrestling has been blessed for that aspect. And like you said, if they can look at what they're learning along the way, they can apply these life skills to any other field and truly do well. Much like yourself. We'll get to that point, later in your story. But let's stay with ECW for a little bit there because obviously ECW was revolutionary and you were part of that. Two factions, in fact.
oh
So
yeah.
Raven's Nest and then of course the Blue World Order, very definitive groups. So in Raven's Nest, how long did it take for you to become official cast member in terms of being, full
I would
member?
say that's a good question. Probably about a month or two, where I
Okay.
just kept going to shows and I was on the sheet. And Raven said, "Yeah, come on, kid." And I would just doing run-ins and taking bumps for the Sandman's cane and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
once Stevie left and Raven went to WCW, it was me and Meanie were a team.
Hmm.
Then Meanie went to WB as Job Squad, and then it was just me. And then I teamed up with Chetty. And
Hmm.
Nova and Chetty were awesome. We were a
Hmm.
really good team. And then when Chris left, I was on my own for the first time. And that's the only part of ECW going out of business that I mean, I miss it.
Hmm.
But if it had been open like another 6 months, I was right at the cusp
Hmm.
when they went out of business. And I mean, I think I would have had some good matches, showcase matches with Jerry Lynn, and probably I would have got one with Rob,
Yeah.
uh, with C.W. Anderson for sure. I
Mhm.
mean, it just went out of business. I needed 6 more months, man, to
Yeah.
get like that good, cool title, that singles title run. I just didn't get it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it is what it is.
It like you said, it contributed so vastly to the industry today. So I mean, you can't look at it negatively. It was a huge thing. One of the things I did notice though, looking back at some of your other matches, I mean, you were pretty well put together physically.
Oh
So
yeah, I
was bodybuilding something for you growing up, or did that was because of
I there's a difference between weight, and you know this, Amir. There's
yeah.
a difference between working out and training.
Hmm.
So when I was a teenager coming up, I would just go to the gym, you know, see some weights, pick them up, throw them around a little bit, get a lemonade, go have a cookie, go do some bull nonsense. There was no pattern, no nothing. And then
Hmm.
when ECW was like halfway through my ECW run, I was like, you know what? If something ever happens to this place, I want to go to WWE.
Hmm.
But I also, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it the best I can. So I'm going to make myself literally like a living science experiment
Yeah.
where it didn't matter if it was morning, noon, or night. I always had protein with me. I always had water.
Hmm.
I had a shaker cup. I was at a positive nitrogen balance all the time. I
Hmm.
used to use the little pee strips to see if I was in ketosis.
Okay.
Uh, I would go down to the macronutrient with carbs, fats, protein, you name it. I
Hmm.
would go months without extra salt or a pretzel. I mean, I set my alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning to wake up and have a shake. I
Wow.
was doing fasted cardio, training in the afternoon. I was always wrestling a ton too, but
Yeah.
I started learning like kinesiology and fitness theory and just really learning how to train muscles at different angles and different rep schemes and weight schemes and you name it. It
Yeah.
was my obsession, man. I'm not saying it was healthy, trust me. Like
Right.
I would wake up in the morning at 7% body fat and jump up and down to the front of the mirror to see if like I held any water that night. And
Wow.
I would be convinced, like, oh my God, I'm fat.
Yeah.
And I would take like saran wrap and wrap myself in it with preparation H to help pull the water out. Like
Yeah.
all these old secrets I used to hear about, I did them all.
Wow.
I was
But
obsessed. Yeah.
now you've touched on something where we may be able to help somebody here because you've
Yeah.
essentially it sounds like you developed a little bit of body dysmorphia, like you're saying.
100%. I 100% did.
So how did you handle this? How did you break out of that? And, explain.
I mean, I got to the point where just so many people like would just constantly, man, you look great. You look great. You look great. And I would watch myself and accept it. Like this is the pinnacle of what I can pull off physically without getting too ridiculously lean because then you're going to get hurt.
Mm,
And then I started realizing what I was there, especially when I went to WWE. I'm like, all right, well, I'm Simon Dean. I'm a heel. It's going to take a lot of bumps. I'm
hmm.
a bigger dude in real life, but I'm still smaller than some of these big wrestlers,
Yeah.
Kane, other guys. So I'm like, I can't be 198 pounds.
Hmm.
And then I just started realizing what was more into it. So I wanted to be healthier than just super lean all the time.
Yeah.
And your just priorities just shift a little bit. And I'd already done it. Like I got as lean as I could.
Yeah.
I had abs. I was striated delts, like the whole deal. I'm like, I'm not going to pull this off again. So
Hmm.
I'm good. And it
Yeah.
just, you just have to really take a step back sometimes to go forward.
Yeah. Because obviously one thing is there's vastly more to Mike Busey than just his body, essentially,
Yes.
and
Yeah, of
that
course.
and that's the thing is for anybody who's dealing with that, and I've experienced some of that myself too, Mike. So I can concur with you. I did that back in '03. I got
Yeah.
dialed all the way down and it becomes an obsession to the point. And you
How
have
much can I
to,
do?
yeah, how much can
Yeah.
I do? But
I
also,
would say that to any of the body guys in wrestling. We saw these top body guys, and Masters used to say it, and all the other guys, and it was a term, hey, you're a body guy. And
mhm,
sometimes they just become somewhat obsessed with it, which is great. You're training, you're working really hard, you're doing all that, but you also have to take a step and realize it is pro wrestling.
yeah,
We're getting thrown in the ropes and bounce off of them.
yeah,
I mean, if it was real, Big Show or Brock or Kurt Angle or Mark Henry would be the world champion. Nobody would ever beat them.
yeah,
So it's like you just got to kind of realize what it is.
yeah,
And maybe if you're lacking in some other areas of why you're not getting over as much character, promos, skill, ring psychology, you can work on that more. But I mean, still to this day, I stay at about 230.
yeah.
I work out 4 or 5 days a week, not
Okay,
as super intensely as I used to. I
yeah,
mean, the diet's not as tight as it used to be, but
yeah.
I'll always go. If I go 3 or 4 days without going to the gym, I get jittery and anxious, and I'll do that until I'm in my 70s,
Oh
until I
yeah.
can't do it more, for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah. But I think that also is I was just having a conversation today with a friend of mine. We were talking about that, about how it's a natural process,
Mhm.
especially for males to
Yeah,
lift, because that goes back to our ancestry of hunting and gathering. So yeah, if you're going to sit around, you could develop some sort of anxiety or because it's not natural for us to sit for prolonged periods of time. We're meant to
I just
move.
like it too. I enjoy
Yeah.
it. Like, I don't drink,
Yeah.
I don't smoke, I don't stay up super late. I still get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'll go train before work, and it's just my habit. It's just what
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
So
And it goes back to that discipline.
yeah.
So we've talked about ECW. So now ECW folds. Now, were you taken directly from that time into OVW, WWE, or was there a lag where you was there a lag?
Great question there. So when that ECW closes, I always knew I was going to get something. I was doing some motion capture work for the video games out in California, and I had talked to. Actually, I saw Jim Ross at Dennis Carluzzo's funeral. I saw Jim Cornette at Jim Carluzzo's funeral. He said, we're going to get to you eventually, Nova, and I knew they would.
Mhm.
They had just bought WCW though, so they had a bunch of influx from there. So a whole bunch of different things happened, and I wind up wrestling for Rick Bassman at UPW,
Okay.
which was a godsend because I got with Rick. I'd actually thought about maybe getting out of the business at that point. I'm like, ECW's done. They got these guys from WCW. I think they're going to get to me, but I better have a plan B.
Hmm.
So I start doing Rick's show. Shout out to Rick Bassman. He's the man. Where I met Frankie Kazarian out there, a Jesse Hernandez trainee.
Hmm.
And I get with Frankie. We're doing the tag team out there. We're getting some buzz. And that's where I ran into Jim Ross. And he came to a show where me and Frankie wrestled Edge and Christian.
Okay.
And this is at the height of like their WWE powers.
Yeah.
And we went step for step, toe for toe, move for move for Edge and Christian. And we did not look out of place.
Hmm.
And Jim Ross said to me afterwards, "Hey, we're going to get to you. Just hang tight." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, they reached out. I got the phone call. I said, "I can do it. I just have a commitment in Australia and I have a commitment in Japan to finish. I'll be down to Louisville after that."
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I called Jimmy Cornette from Roppongi, Japan, from downtown Tokyo. And I got him on the phone at like 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever.
Yeah.
And he laid out the whole first 6 months I was going to be in OVW the whole day. I said, "All right, Jim, as soon as I get back, I'll pack up my stuff and I'll be down there."
Yeah.
And I came back and never left.
Wow. That's incredible. Were
Yeah.
you married at the time, or would you
No,
have to go?
I was
Okay.
dating my daughter Olivia is her mom. I was dating her at the time. She was from Canada. I was
Okay.
from Jersey. I was going to move to Louisville. She would come down and visit, and eventually she moved down here and we got married.
Okay.
But and then I just, even when I got promoted to the main roster of WWE, you were free to live wherever you wanted to.
Hmm.
But I'm like, I'm already in Kentucky. It's in the
Hmm.
middle of the country.
Hmm.
It's easy to get anywhere I want to. There's a ring here in case I get banged up and I got to rehab because they were sending guys to OVW anyway. So
Hmm.
I'm like, I'll just stay here.
Yeah.
So that's how I wound up staying.
Very smart thinking. You've
Yeah.
got a good mind on you, and I think that's
That's why so
important.
many guys live in Florida now because NXT is down there.
Right.
Well, it's a
Exactly.
tax-free state. It's beautiful. The airport is major airport. They get to stay right there. The office is right there. The building is right there. So if it's me,
Hmm.
if I'm in Florida, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and I'm a talent who they don't have anything for and just kind of lingering around, whatever, my ass would be at NXT every day
Yeah.
if I could be.
Yeah.
At the shows on Wednesday, helping out, whatever they need me to do. If I got to show up there, I'm going to show up there. I'll show up there in a different outfit every week
Yeah.
until they figure out a way to put me on the show and do something with me.
Yeah.
Or
You've got
fire
to.
me.
Yep. Yep. You've got to chase it. That's one of the things
Yes.
that I'd love to stress to viewers is often in the media, Mike, we see things that just happen. They seem to happen for people, especially with social media, because it's very
Yeah,
exaggerated.
sometimes. Yeah, it does.
But it's sometimes, but the truth is you have to fight for it and you have to work very, very, very hard. And
Well,
there's a
here's
lot.
the thing I tell people all the time. Today, we have a society where it's very easy to become famous.
Mm,
You can literally go viral overnight.
right.
Don't believe me? Go look up the Hawk Tua girl.
Okay.
That was 2 months ago.
Okay.
You couldn't find 5 people on the street right now that know her name. So what I mean by that is like it's very easy to become famous,
Yeah.
but it's just as easy to lose your fame.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
So to have staying power and recreate yourself and learning how to get over and really learn how to burn that candle the right way, you
Mhm.
got to be good at what you do and you got to be persistent.
Yep. Yep.
I've never heard of it. There's no such thing as an overnight success. You
No.
can catch lightning in a bottle,
Mhm.
but the lightning fades. So how do you
Right.
refill the bottle again?
Yep.
So
Exactly. It's a constant. You've got to constantly evolve. Now, when you entered OVW, what were the stark contrasts between what you've been doing in ECW and OVW? Did you have to re-educate yourself on many levels?
I was very excited to go to OVW because I knew Jim Cornette was in charge. He was going to put me in good programs down there. It was the first time that I really got featured or treated what I would call like a top guy. I walked right in with open arms to everybody. Nick Dinsmore, Rob Conway, Doug, Dano, Danny Davis, Jimmy, all the talents down there. A lot of them had heard of me, but they didn't really ever see me before because they weren't allowed to watch ECW. If you were in OVW, you were, because of Jimmy, right or wrong, you were taught that ECW was the devil.
Yeah.
And all that hardcore nonsense, that stuff. So I went down there and I would do some stuff that these guys were like, wait, what in the world? They had no, and I got right there when Matt Morgan, when he first got
Oh, yeah.
signed, Travis Tomko, Seven,
Hmm.
Jindrak was down there, everybody. And here I am wrestling completely different than any of these guys. But through Rip Rogers and his training and Danny and Jimmy and everybody else, all us working together, I learned how to all the things that I'd never learned before about like match psychology and structuring them and working holds and body parts and comebacks and pacing and listening to the crowd, like all this stuff I just never did.
Yeah.
So I was ecstatic to go down there. I love my time in OVW. I never had a single bad day in OVW ever,
That's
never,
good. That's
because
cool.
I went there every single day. I was like, I have another chance to try to prove myself and get out of here.
Yeah.
Not that I wanted to leave, but I wanted to finally get that big carrot and say I made it to the big time.
Mm-hmm. So when did that come for you? When did you sense that that moment had come? What was said to you, Jim Cornette? What was your
I'll
gimmick at
tell
the
you
time?
exactly. Yeah, tell you exactly. About a year and a half into it, they were really figuring out like, what are we going to do with this guy? He's been around for a minute. Is he going to be a trainer in OVW? What? Like, let's figure it out. Because they would bring me on the road like every 6 months to do house shows, and they just couldn't figure something out. So I'm at TV one day, and then one of the executives pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you're going to meet with Vince today. He's going to talk to you and try to get in your head a little bit and see how we can make some money with you." I was like, "Okay, great."
Okay.
So I sit with him, and I had the idea in the back of my head the whole time. I said, I have an idea. I said, I want to be like a fitness guy, like Tony Little and Jack LaLanne,
Oh yeah.
kind of like a nonsense snake oil salesman, like full of crap. He's like, oh, okay, I kind of get that.
Mm.
And he started talking about doing some videos. And I said, well, I don't want to do videos. I want to do infomercials. And he's like, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I had him right there.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, let's think of this. So the
Yeah.
next week, the writers were going to be in Cincinnati after Raw. They were going to come down to the school the next day, and Vince was coming with him. So I knew I had the shot.
Yeah.
So the only one who knew I was going to do it was Aaron Aguilar, the hardcore kid, because we were
Okay.
going to wrestle mini matches that day for the writers. And I pulled Aaron. I knew I was going to do like 5 matches
Mhm.
because they wanted to see other guys too.
Okay.
So the last match of the day, Johnny Ace was there too. And Johnny pulled me aside and said, hey, you got your stuff? And I said, yeah. I had the whole fitness outfit, the whole deal. I had a whistle, a stopwatch, and I did a mini match against Aaron Aguilar. And I walked right out. I think I played Olivia Newton-John's physical, and I was doing squats, and I'm doing push-ups, and I threw a protein bar at Vince, like all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I just kept, as the match was going on, I'm looking out of the corner of my eye, I see him like laughing, and I'm like, oh, I think I got it.
Yeah.
And then we did promos for them. And when it was over, Johnny came up to me and said, hey, you better groom another leader for OVW because you're going to be on the road with this. I'm telling you right now, it's going to work.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it happened. And then
Yeah.
literally 2 weeks later, I got a call from Big John Grabaric, and they were flying me to Connecticut to shoot my infomercial.
Wow.
And I flew up there the night before, and I sat with them, and they literally said, what do you need to make this work?
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to get like this magic list of all this stuff. No, like I was writing like, I need fried chicken, I need a girl, I need some dumbbell, like all this stuff. The next day it was all there. And we spent all day shooting those commercials, and you saw the end result.
Yeah.
And it was that fast.
It was brilliant because you mentioned there Tony Little. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy with the long hair. Yeah.
Technique. That's what it was based off of Tony Little.
Yep.
It was based off Jack LaLanne.
Yep.
It was also based off an old movie called Heavyweights with Ben Stiller, where he
Oh,
played a guy,
yes.
Tony Perkis, with the Perkis system. It was
Yep.
all like these nonsense, a little bit from Dodgeball too,
Yep.
but all this nonsense fitness guru guys who Richard Simmons was in there a little bit too.
Yep. Yeah.
I just try to be something different, and
Yeah.
it was memorable. It was a cool character. People
Yep.
still talk about it.
Yep.
And I just try to be entertaining, because at the end of the day, pro wrestling should always, whether it's you're entertained by the violence or entertained by the comedy or entertained by something that makes you smile, it's still entertainment.
No, it was definitely highly entertaining. So that costume you had, I remember that purple suit.
Yeah,
Was that something that you designed or did they help you?
100%. I came up with all my own. I wanted to make the closest thing I could to a Jack LaLanne jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And the one Stephanie gave me the idea, put my face on the back of it.
Okay.
She's like, you should put your smiley, smarky face on the back. And I'm like, I could do that.
Yeah.
The bringing the gym bag to the ring, that was mine. That was my idea. I just did it during a dart match one day, and Vince said, keep it. And then actually the crowning achievement was the Segway scooter.
Yeah.
I was in a casino one night, and I saw security guards on a Segway scooter doing the security run on a Segway.
Mhm.
And I looked at my wife, and she's like, look at them. They're so lazy, they don't even want to walk. And I was like, that is perfect.
Yeah.
And I brought a picture up to Stephanie, and I told her, she goes, but you're a fitness guy. Why would you ride to the ring? I said, that's why. And she goes, that's
why.
perfect. Get it. So that's how that happened. Yeah.
It
I
would,
didn't give anything to anybody. I mean, all my promos, ideas, all that stuff. I'm sure I'm sure it's the same way today. But like, very rarely did I get scripted down to the nth detail. I
mhm.
never sat around memorizing paragraphs of dialogue or any of this stuff, or just I don't know. I mean, and a lot of my ideas I came up with my own.
Let me ask you this then, Mike. Do
Mhm.
you think it's because you showed initiative and you showed that you did have ideas that that could get respect? I'm just thinking about for someone
Yeah,
now.
I think so. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're a bulletproof performer, I mean, Vince said that to me one day. He's like, "You're a bulletproof performer. Every time you go out there, I know it's going to be good. I know it's going to be solid,
Mm.
and the fans are going to get something good." And like early on, I was hitting. If I wasn't hitting home runs, I was certainly hitting doubles and triples.
Yeah.
So when you do that time after time, like, okay, we don't have to worry about his segment. Plus, also, if I'm being honest, I don't think they sat around planning the 3 hours of Monday Night Raw and said, "Oh my God, we've got to make sure Simon has an amazing segment tonight."
Yeah.
As long as I went out there, whoever I was going against, it was going to be good. They were going to get a reaction. It was filler on the show. It was good filler.
Hmm.
And it was like, all right, this guy's good, man. Let him do his thing.
No,
So,
it was definitely good. What were some of the highlights for you in terms of segments, if you can
uh,
recall?
the number one, the two biggest that people always ask me about is the one I did with Dave Bautista, and
Hmm.
I'm very happy for Dave. His success in Hollywood was incredible. Couldn't happen to a better guy.
Hmm.
I think Dave's the best wrestler turned actor of any of them,
Yeah.
and everybody's done great. John has done good. I'm sorry, Rock has done great, but Dave has had such a range; it's incredible.
Hmm.
But the one when I sold Batista the muscle milk,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then obviously the one I get asked about all the time is Stone Cold Steve Austin. We did it the night after WrestleMania in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
That was so good that I'll never forget when Pat Patterson pulled me aside afterwards. He said that should have been on WrestleMania last night.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, Pat." I said, "Now you said I would have got about 20 grand for that last night if I was
Yeah.
on there."
Yeah.
But to have him say that to me was awesome. So
Yeah. Yeah. What was it like? And what were some of the guys that you gravitated towards during your 2000s run? Who were some of the heroes that you looked up to and some of those that you became good friends with?
I mean, I loved always loved the Hardy Boys. Always, still to this day, I love Matt and Jeff. I love Mark Henry, Dreamer. Always cool back. I was cool with it. I mean, Rey Mysterio. I loved him. Booker and Charmel, class acts. Can't say enough good things about them.
Mhm.
I was Eddie Guerrero, obviously.
Yeah.
Eddie actually wrestled Eddie when I was on that 1 year period after ECW before WWE.
Mhm.
My brother ran a big show in Toms River, New Jersey, and it was Eddie was out of ECW. It was out of WWE, and the
Mhm.
headline match in Toms River was Eddie Guerrero versus Nova, and
Okay.
that was the match where I did it. And afterwards, I said I can really do this at that level.
Mhm.
The wrestling Eddie gave me that confidence.
Yeah.
But I like being honestly in WWE too, and this doesn't get brought up all the time. Some of the people I really liked the most there were all the people behind the scenes,
Mm.
whether it was the late great Howard Finkel and Tony
Oh, yeah.
Chimmel and all the refs, Kyoto and Jack and everybody there, and the production people and the Richie Magic and the seamstresses, like all those people, the traveling crew, with Little
Mhm.
Nate. I mean, so
Mhm.
many people were so cool and they were part of it, and they don't always get their shout outs, but they
Mhm.
should because they're
Mhm.
on the road just as much as anybody else. And a
Mhm.
lot of those people work longer and harder than the people in the ring. They're
Yeah.
there every day.
Yeah.
So
You're absolutely right, Mike. In fact, the other day, Rico was telling me that Howard Finkel used to call new talent and stuff,
he
and he
sure
would do
did.
other watching it as a fan, you just thought, okay, he does the ring announcing, but no, he did
No, he
other
was
tasks.
behind the scenes in talent relations. He handled a lot of, and Enrico's a good guy. Is Rico doing well? Is his health going good?
Yes, and
Good.
we just launched our podcast on Friday together.
Rico's a class act. He's a good guy. He
Yeah.
was legit. He was somebody that the business didn't want at first because they thought he was too old. That's the
Yeah.
truth. He'll tell you the story. And he
Yep.
got it and proved him wrong.
Yep.
So,
Yep. He
but
did.
yeah, it's just one of those things where there's so many moving parts, and a lot of the people do two or three or four different things up there,
Hmm.
especially the referees and behind the scenes folks and all that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Howard Finkel would call talent. He had a little travel stuff and all that. So Fink was
Hmm.
very integral.
Hmm. Now, at the time, because you seem to be very creative
Mhm.
and very
I
intellectual,
try. Yeah.
what that may do. But were there any moments when you thought, oh, maybe I can transition away from this and go into a producer role, writer role, or was that ever a question for you? Did you ever think of that?
No, I mean, even to that, I mean, even when I have friends who were part of AEW when they first launched. I was asked about that a little bit. I just don't have, as somebody who is not in the business full time anymore and detached from it, has made his life outside of it now. I
Yeah.
would never want to take $1 or 1 minute of time from someone who still wants to be in it and
Yeah.
can contribute at a high level,
Yeah.
whether it's in the ring, behind the scenes, whatever it may be. Those spots are best served to somebody who can give that attention 24 hours a day.
Hmm.
And because you have to do that.
Yeah.
If you're a talent, a producer behind the scenes, you're living, breathing, eating, and sleeping that, you should.
Hmm.
If you're not, I don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
I don't know. I've never met Tony Khan, but I would imagine he demands of his people very similar to what WWE is,
Hmm.
because like an all-in mentality. But I just couldn't do it. So I
Yeah.
would much rather have somebody else be in those spots.
Yeah. That's very admirable. And speaking about, obviously transitioning out of the business into a different field. So what was it that made you decide, or what happened so that your career ended in WWE? What was that all about?
Finally, out of WWE entirely, out of wrestling, all of it. After being a scout for a year, totally out of the business. Uh, I had always been fascinated with finance and money and whatnot, and I figured, a lot of us in sports and athletics, we might make a couple dollars. Well, what do you do once you make that? Like, how do you get out of bed the next day? Because
Yeah.
there's only so many people in wrestling or even athletics who can make money the rest of their life by being themselves.
Hmm.
So I had a degree in mathematics, and I got into lending, commercial, residential lending, and whatnot, and was finished a business degree.
Hmm.
And then I got into banking and finance. And a buddy of mine used to work was working in banking. He brought it up to me, and I thought he was crazy. I'm like, I can't do that.
Hmm.
And then I just kind of met some folks and talked to them and got on board and been doing it for the last almost 15 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
And
really I love what I do. The bank treats me well. I love the job. I
mhm,
love being in the community. We
mhm,
stay really, really busy.
mhm,
And I don't know, man. It's a lot. Again, a lot of the stuff that I learned from wrestling, the discipline, structure, accountability, goal setting, all of that is
mhm.
what you do in the real world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, people do forget pro wrestling, and Stevie always says this: pro wrestling is a work sport run by fans, kind of marks, whatever you
Mhm.
want to call them. It is. They're the ultimate fans,
Yeah.
and it's not always fair. It just isn't. You
Hmm.
can control your look, you control your attitude, you can control what you do in your matches for the most part.
Hmm.
But other than that, there's so much you can't control. But in the real world, a lot of times when you bring that same skill set to the real world, you can
Hmm.
kind of control your own destiny a lot more.
Hmm.
And I like it. So
Hmm.
with the guys who I talk to who sometimes get released or they quit or they move on, and I'm not just talking about wrestling. I'm talking about NFL, NHL, MLB. I've had people reach out and I've talked to them, just said, "Hey man, check in with me every couple months and let's see how you're doing." And that's I don't think we're going to have as many, I don't want to say sad stories, but it's so many depressing stories
Hmm.
over the next 5 to 10 years
Hmm.
as maybe we've had the past 5 to 10 years, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense to me. But it sounds also like, which is very inspiring, is you've taken a little bit of your character in pro wrestling. You are a little bit of a motivator, an
Yeah, I
inspiring.
try to be. I
You,
mean,
you, you know, you've it's happened organically. Just talking to you, it comes
thank
off.
you, Mir.
So have you been directly involved on any occasion with somebody that you've really seen their life turn around completely? Have you been able to help? Have you ever seen that?
Oh, brother, Lemire, I've had people stay at my house and detox
Wow.
from drugs, go cold turkey on alcohol.
Okay.
People who were near suicidal, who were going to kill themselves because of a bad breakup. I mean, stuff that you wouldn't believe. I can never
Mhm.
tell you who they were,
Yeah.
but or on the telephone with some of these folks. I've been on the telephone with people who literally had a bottle of pills in their hand and were going to end it all that night.
Mm.
And it's I just kind of like, hey man, that's sobering, man. When you hear that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't. It's just, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And some of them from wrestling, some from other places, but
Hmm.
it just,
Yeah.
if somebody calls you, or if you think somebody needs a hand or assistance or just a hand out, hand up, whatever you want to call it, just take a second to check.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
really that big of a deal. Even if they're crying wolf or whatever it may be, or someone's like, he does this all the time or this or that,
Mhm.
like that's cool. Let him
Mhm.
do it.
Mhm.
Just I don't know.
Hey.
There's definitely some other guys who have passed away in the past who I have 100% said to myself, what if I had one more conversation with him before he died? Or
Hmm.
what if I did this? I've done that at least half a dozen times. I
Hmm.
said,
Hmm.
man, I just wish I could have got him one more time.
Yep.
And I didn't.
It's the human part of us that I think sometimes gets bogged down by trying to attain material wealth or achieve a goal in a career. And then you often forget about the fact that we are all human beings. And in life, there's something extra to life. It's not just all about the accomplishments. Like you said, you take that time to take notice of people. But moving, into other realms as well. Now we know that you love acting. You've mentioned that to me off camera as well, and that you
Yeah.
do acting on Fridays, correct? One day a week, or
So I have a couple. I work with a live theater group, a dinner theater group. I've done some movie performances. We have rehearsals for the group I'm with now, doing acting here in Louisville. It's a dinner theater. Who done it? It's called.
okay,
Uh, it's different. It just
yeah,
gives you something to kind of flex your mental muscle a little bit. You have some fun with it.
yeah,
But I always got something, Joe. We just released a movie last year with Little Chicago Pictures called Fighting the Fire. That was a movie about the struggles that first responders can go through.
okay,
So I was really honored to play a part in that one. But
yeah,
the process intrigues me.
yeah,
I by no means am going to become a working actor. But if there is something in Louisville, Kentucky, or in Kentucky in general that I can maybe do a day or two here or there and
yeah,
go do some parts and have some fun with it, I would be interested. But
yeah, yeah. And then you're also involved in other things as well, like you said, for your community. So many different ventures that you get involved with. Again, was this something that was natural, or did this develop later in life as you matured, or were you always like this?
when I was a kid, I was always into do like some volunteer events too. But as I got older and started seeing the impact you can make, uh, and I volunteer with every group from the Salvation Army, the Dream Factory, the Dare to Care, the Lord's Kitchen, you name it. I mean, the Cathedral Assumption. I think this year I'm going to do 28 different organizations that I'll spend some time with.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's always, and I've connected and networked through all those events and met different people and here in all different walks of life, and
Hmm.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I try to. I take a lot of pride in that. If that's one thing I want people to take away and be like, wow, this guy put himself out there and actually,
Hmm.
everybody wants to do volunteer work sometimes until it's time to do the volunteer work, and then they can't make it for whatever reason. I
Right,
was at
right.
the waterfront on Saturday for the American Heart Association. We did a walk down there. You name it, I'll take part in it. So
What
if you're
would
out
you
there, you have a group, you need some help, and you hear this, and you look for some volunteers, maybe I can find you some or something like that. Reach out.
What would you say to somebody who's watching this? Because we could certainly do with a lot more people like you, Mike. So what would you say to somebody right now? What are some of the benefits, the long-term benefits that someone can garner from volunteering their time for them
Oh,
personally and for the others?
it's huge. Number one, you'll feel better about yourself for sure. You'll make some connections. You'll network. You can grow your own personal network, and you're giving back for something that, especially if you have a specialized skill set, and
Mhm.
you can volunteer that, whether it's carpentry or electrician, or just manpower, or teaching somebody finance, like whatever it is. If
Mhm.
you're good at something, you can go give that to somebody. I
Mhm.
mean, you become a master when you are when you can teach something to somebody.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you can do that through a volunteer work or just an effort, going to serve food or clean a neighborhood or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
it works all around. It
Mhm.
does. There's nothing bad has ever happened because somebody volunteered somewhere
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah. And now you mentioned you got a son or a daughter?
I have a little daughter, Olivia. She's be 15 in October.
Oh,
So she does a lot of the work with me too. She goes on
okay.
to a lot of volunteer events. We do them together. She likes doing it. We stay pretty busy with it.
Yeah, I was going to ask if she got involved in that. Now, what
Oh
about
yeah.
her? Any aspirations in her mind to follow in her dad's footsteps
Oh,
in
she hates
pro?
wrestling. She gets a kick out of it that I was on it. She sees the videos, thinks that I have action figures. That's cool. But
Yeah,
other than that, has no desire to do it, be a part of it, nothing. So,
yeah,
and that's fine by me.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Okay.
a different life now, so I'd be more open to it. But if it had been what I got into and what I did, there's no way. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to ask you a couple more things.
yeah.
I ask everybody this question, although I
Mhm.
have failed recently to ask it, though. In your mind, Mike, what is the meaning of life?
Hmm. Find happiness, live in love, and leave a good legacy.
Okay.
I mean, that's the best way I can sum it up.
Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one right there.
Enjoy what you do and be remembered for how you made people feel. So,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, make him feel in a good way, in a
yeah.
positive way. And then anything else that you'd like to say to someone who's watching this video who either was a fan of yours in pro wrestling or is just discovering you now for the first time?
Yeah, thanks,
Anything?
man. I mean, reach out, find me on Facebook. I don't have Instagram, any of the other things. He's got Facebook. I'm on there, Mike Bucci. Find me on there. If you're a fan of mine, thank you for helping me live my dream. I tell people all the time, if we didn't have fans, then we wouldn't be wrestling. We'd be practicing.
Hmm.
because you practice in an arena when there's chairs there. You're not wrestling. You're not working at that point. There's no fans there to give you a reaction. So I never turned down an autograph at the airport, a restaurant, here or there, whatever. The fans always were there for me. I love them. They were great. Still to this day, I'll
Hmm.
get some fan mail, or every now and then somebody will run into me out in town and be like, "Hey, man, are you so and so?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?"
Yeah.
But I thank them for the journey. It was
Mhm.
great. I loved it when I did it. I appreciate their support. And if you need anything, find me. If you need some help with something, let's chat.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Well, Mike, stay on the
Thank you,
line.
man.
Stay on the line. I'll just say goodbye to the audience. But on behalf of the audience, I'd like to thank you as well, Mike, for what you
Thank you,
did, your
buddy.
contributions to pro wrestling, for giving it your all and for entertaining us and inspiring us and in giving ideas to the new generation as well. And
That's
thank
the
you for your
goal.
time today.
Thank
Okay,
you, buddy.
viewers. Yep, absolutely. So, viewers, this has been Mike Busey, aka Hollywood Nova,
There you go.
Supernova, Nova, Simon Dean. He's a man of great many talents and a true, I'd say like a true inspiration, a
Thank
true
you, man. Thank you.
inspiration. And but until next time, everybody, victor what you must victor in your life. This is Emir, this is Mike Busey, and this has been Victoire.